When it was happening, I tuned into the sun, because the sun was low in the sky. It was evening time. And all I remember was gold. Right. All I remember was gold and silhouettes of leaves.
They would say to my family, "How is she? The poor girl, how is she?" And that just makes you feel like, oh my God, am I ever going to get my identity back? Am I ever going to be the person I was? I'm that girl that happened to.
It is hard to believe how that could be a secret even to myself for 40 years.
It was like a two-pronged journey. The hell journey and the counselling journey, both travelling along together and intertwined.
Everything just narrows into a tiny, tiny point, and it seems that there is just nothing. It was literally a fog.
I think when you're abused as a child, it's like you grow differently. So you see things differently. I saw things differently.
Going through my childhood as an angry little boy, and getting lots of disapproval and punishment for that from my family. My parents didn't know anything at the time of what happened, and from my point of view, you know, there's still a very angry 8-year-old who's desperate for them to spot something. I was abused when I was 8 years old by the priest at the school that I was attending, and really blanked the memory completely, and only fully recovered the memory of exactly what had happened and who had done what to me at the age of 49.
Once upon a time I was a very sociable individual, independent, and I had no fear, and I loved life. Worked hard, played hard. And all of a sudden, I was afraid to go outside my own front door. Unfortunately for me, I had physical injuries as well as emotional injuries. And every time I looked in the mirror, I had facial fractures, and I could see my perpetrator's face looking back at me. I wasn't able to face anyone. I didn't want contact with anyone. I just really isolated myself.
Before that happened to me in 2000, I would have considered myself quite optimistic and see light at the end of any tunnel, and then suddenly it was, everything had just collapsed.
It was a very sort of a schizoid existence where you would crave people around you. Other times you'd run down alleyways to avoid people. It's not like you were bullying anyone away, it's almost like you were warning people away.
When you're 13, 14 years of age, you're an absolute innocent. I knew it was wrong what was happening, but I was so overcome with fear, I couldn't stop, I couldn't get out of the car, I froze. After the event, when he had dropped me outside the town and I was walking back into town, and I remember looking at the steeple actually of the church, I remember thinking to myself, I can't live here anymore. I'm not a teenager anymore. I felt like an adult.
I was trying to act normal, not to have people ask me questions about why I had changed. Because I had. I'd become withdrawn. I pushed people away. And I thought that doing that was protecting them from my pain. But it actually made it worse.
I contacted the police, made an appointment, and a detective came down from the sexual crimes unit and I got the absolutely classic response of, sure, you were 18, 19, 20, surely if you had wanted to say no, you could have said no, and why did you continue working there? Basically, I was kind of flabbergasted. It didn't exactly put me in the way of asking for more help. I mean, I was very mistrustful of authority figures in general anyway, and that really just put the crown on it.
What happened to me in the car, and what I feel did the most damage to me, was he was so cunning and he had this planned so well. He disregarded humanity, he disregarded my youth, he disregarded me being 13 going on 14 years of age. He completely disregarded and disrespected the fact that I was starting a journey of maturity and discovery as a young boy. And the consequences of his actions that day, from a psychological perspective, it completely destroyed all my trust in humanity.
I started to have specific dreams, specific nightmares, I would say, but I didn't know who it was, but there was this scary presence that was coming in my dreams. At some point it became more and more, yeah, there was something sexual in here, and eventually that's when I first came to look for help, to look for some kind of counselling.
There was a woman who had been raped and presented at A&E in Galway Regional Hospital, and there was nobody willing or able to look after her as she needed to be looked after, and it added to her trauma very considerably, as you can imagine. So a group of women decided to get together and found a Rape Crisis Centre. So it was very much on a volunteer and cooperative basis to begin with.
We weren't really that welcome in Galway at the time, and I know one politician said we were giving Galway a bad name by saying that there was rape in Galway or sexual violence in Galway. That was in 1991, that was the building that Mary Robinson opened. But I think it was a real acknowledgement and validation for the work we were doing, that the President of Ireland, and she was quite new in the office then, actually decided to come and open this small service in the west of Ireland, so it was great.
Eventually we got a house in the Claddagh, and now we're here with 12 counselling rooms, which is amazing, and plenty of space and nice big training rooms and everything. So we are in Forster Court in what was called the Magdalene Home. It was a nursing home for the Magdalene women in their older age, where the Sisters of Mercy looked after them. I don't know, there's a nice karma maybe in us having eventually landed here, and the Sisters of Mercy very kindly gave us the premises rent-free as well. You know, with the history of the Magdalene laundries, I firmly believe that so many women ended up in those places as a result of sexual violence, and that part of their history was just never taken account of. So to have a service here that is for the survivors of sexual violence, I think there's just a nice poetic justice in it somehow, and I feel very much that we're almost caretakers of the space, and to honour their memory and their story as well. And there's a little graveyard out the front where a number of them are buried as well, so we think of them often. I would say it is extremely difficult, agonisingly difficult to pick up that phone for the first time, because it's making what happened real. They often need reassurance that almost that they have a right to be here. You are the reason we are here, you know.
When I phoned the centre the first time, they were very supportive in saying, come in straight away. I was sitting in the chair for about 2 minutes and I ran out the door. And because I said I shouldn't be here. I was that scared.
In general, that's a difficult issue, is who is it safe to talk to about this, and that's an ongoing process for me, is to balance between a strong desire to tell the story and for it not to be something hidden anymore, and yet to be prepared that people may not want to hear.
I was so afraid that she would say, you know, you don't qualify for counselling, like that's not real abuse. But she validated everything that had happened, and that was a huge relief. It was okay because I knew that somebody believed me.
That first meeting, all I did was sit and was able to say what happened to me, and I cried for 45 minutes. And I realised when I got home that even after my first session, I had a little bit of weight left off my shoulders.
Somehow, even though I didn't want to do counselling or face into it, I knew it was my only hope. I would have described my life that time as hanging on by a thread.
It was a very grim time. I wasn't an easy person to live with, be around, or even talk to. If you had said black, I would have said white, just to get a reaction, just so as I could have an argument, just so as I could get angry and have a point of being angry. I just knew that I had to talk to somebody. Since coming here, as I say, it's just like a light bulb goes on, literally, and you can see just a little bit better inside yourself.
It's a whole set of dynamics around abuse that are really different, and they're specific, and this is their specific area of expertise. So when you're talking about something that happened, the counsellor completely gets the nuances of what it is. The counsellor really understands me, the things that I find unbearable, unacceptable, the things that I need to express are heard in the way that I need them to be heard. Because he's a member of my extended family, what's important for me is that when I have an occasion like a family wedding or a funeral or somebody ill in the family that I know that we're all going to be coming together, I can come from counselling and beforehand, and I can get the strength that I need. I can talk things through and make a plan and devise a strategy. That helps me then to deal with the situation.
I was probably 6-7 years in counselling. You know, it was one night, 1 hour. I needed to grieve the loss of me, my identity, who I thought I was, my life as it was before that night. And I was allowed to do that in counselling.
We are primarily a counselling service. That is the bulk of our work, so offering counselling to people from the age of 14 upwards, to both male and female survivors of sexual violence. So that can be childhood sexual abuse, it can be recent assaults, it can be things that happened at any time in the person's life. They might be coming decades afterwards. We provide a free legal clinic as well for anybody who was reporting to the guards or to the social services or whatever. We would provide all of those support services.
The hardest thing about going to court was, it was the first time I'd seen him since the night of the attack, and having someone from the centre with me was just the best support that I could have had. I would say I got justice in court in the sense that I was vindicated, and yes, he pleaded guilty, but that didn't change the opinion of the community I lived in. I was going home one night and one of his buddies saw me and he kicked out at the car. He was with 3 others and he roared loud enough for me to hear, "Get out of the car and we'll kill you, you..." I won't use the language, but that was the kind of resistance to accepting that he had done this. I guess I knew from the night it happened that my life there was over. But I think when that happened, it just was the last straw. If I hadn't had counselling to help me through that, I don't think I'd have made it.
It took 18 months for my case to go to court. There were several times I went, I can't go through with this. You're completely daunted and it intimidates you at the minute you go inside the door. Your perpetrator is sitting a couple of inches away from you and you have to look at him, who during my case did not express any emotions of regret or remorse. It is just so raw. You relive it all back, but you have to be strong. My perpetrator had taken 18 months of my life and he was guilty, and I was going to make sure he did the time for what he did to me, and that's what just gave me the willpower to make sure that I did go through with the court case. I just think that there needs to be greater awareness and education, and that has to start with teenagers through schools.
So this particular workshop was developed around, is it okay to say no? Giving you permission to say no. What is it like to say no?
The education department in the Galway Rape Crisis Centre, there are 4 of us. The age groups we cover are usually about 14 to 22. We basically talk to them about sexual violence and prevention, how they can best protect themselves, how they can take care of each other, how they can deal with it should it happen. If something is named and defined and there's some education around it, it opens it up. It gives people permission to say no. It gives people permission to say, that's abusive, please do not touch me like that again. And in Ireland we have a massive issue with porn at the moment. And girls will say again and again, will you please talk to the boys about porn? There is an assumption that this is what girls want, or that this is what sex is, or that this is what a real man does or doesn't. So there's great questions like, what is the best way of preventing yourself from being raped or abused? How to say no? How does a woman rape a man? Can you get arrested for physical abuse when you were under 17? How do men get raped? What would you do, or how would you manage if you broke up with a person and they became violent? What do you do if your boyfriend shows his friends your nudes? How far does it have to go in to count as rape? That was a 13-year-old boy. What is counselling? Why would somebody forgive someone for rape or abuse? Why don't people in Ireland talk about this if it's happening?
I'm from a very close-knit community, but sexual assault is like a taboo subject. People would look at you, but they wouldn't acknowledge. In my community, like if I went to Mass or I went to the shop, it wouldn't be acknowledged, it would never be spoken about, and it wasn't spoken about directly to me.
People say things, you know, like, oh, you're overreacting, or as I was told, to sweep it under the carpet and forget about it. Nobody wants to believe that perpetrators like this are on their own doorstep.
I had guilt because I didn't get out of the car. I had guilt because I didn't stop him. I had terrible shame, horrific self-loathing for many, many years, which I couldn't reveal to anybody. And I masked this through a lot of my life with alcohol. I was 38 years of age when I went into therapy, going on 39. It's critical for people to become survivors as opposed to victims.
Having finally remembered what happened, it helps me in lots of ways to forgive myself. finding the balance between having enough support and having a certain amount of a social life and having time for myself to look after myself. That's the balance I'm trying to get. Part of me would say that my standards are getting higher.
Good to hear.
Yeah, I kind of say that slightly joking, but you know, on the more true level, you know, it has to be somebody that I can feel a special degree of trust with.
It has gone to from a place of where it consumed me to being almost zero now. That's the beauty of having support like that. It was the counselling that held my hand.
My perpetrator is still in jail. He got a 10-year sentence. He has nearly 5 years done. And when it comes to the time, I'm going to have to learn how to deal, because I'm going to be petrified when he's released. And no matter what counselling you get, you're still having in your head that he's going to get you. But then there again, I know that there's counselling services are here for me, and I think that's when I will need it again. The Rape Crisis Centre will always be here for me.
I'm out in the world and I'm raising my children, I'm working, I'm involved in loads of things, and I can do that. And I can be happy, I can be upbeat, I can support other people, I can be a friend, I can be a sister, I can do all of those things. Because I have a place that I can come to, and I know that that's there, and I have a space and a time that's for me. And I come in here and almost, I would say this is gross, but I would say I vomit out all of that stuff. And I get the support that I need, and then I can go back out into the world and be normal, for the want of a better word.
The physical body may not show any scars whatsoever, but the psychological scars will always be there, always. There are people who are prepared to help, which I don't know why. I really don't know why. It can't be for the millions that are obviously involved in this. No. I've witnessed how it's helped me get through just every day. Yeah, it's challenging, it's hateful, it's horrible, but you'll always get a free cup of tea.
Our motto is helping to heal, essentially. So it's assisting people to find their own inner strengths and to realise, actually, I'm not a victim here, I'm a survivor of something awful, but I have already survived it, and I have amazing strength within me, and that is so, it's so rewarding for us, I guess, as counsellors, to help people to discover that and to see that unfolding over and over again in people in different ways. So.
I need a vessel to sail in this lagoon. I swim in your sweetheart, John, inside me. Not to lose or to win, it's not my program. I need now to feel like a little child. Oh, so I can get right back in it. Get right back in it, get right back in this life.